I'm speaking at a conference here in Sweden, and one of the challenges facing many multinational companies is that of outsourcing, or rather offshoring. We're not just talking about outsourcing to companies within your own country, but offshoring, that is moving the jobs outside of the country to maybe somewhere like India or China. But the challenge there is wage inflation, and it's affecting companies right across the European Union big time, with up to 100% wage inflation for senior executive posts in places like Shanghai, Beijing, and 40 or 50 or 60% wage inflation similarly in places like Mumbai, Hyderabad and elsewhere. Now, even at lower levels, we're seeing an acute shortage of experienced managers, and we're seeing perhaps 14%, 15, 16, 17, 20% wage inflation for large numbers of middle managers handling things like call centers in places like Hyderabad. What does it all mean? Well, firstly, it means that we have to recognize that for those at the top of the management tree in these countries, that they are in the global job market, and companies are going to have to pay global rates, or even higher than global rates, for someone, for instance, who understands the Chinese culture intimately as a Chinese national, but who already has several years business experience in somewhere like the United States or the United Kingdom. We also need to recognize that as we look further down the line, that the economics of outsourcing, for instance, a call center to Hyderabad are starting to shift. And already we're starting to see companies begin to contemplate moving out of India, which is now too expensive, to somewhere like Pakistan or perhaps even Vietnam, Bangladesh or other places. The outsourcing story, the offshoring story, therefore, is coming to an abrupt halt, or it will do, as it has been. I'm not saying that there won't be an offshoring industry in India. Of course there will be, as well as in China and other places. But the economics are changing. For instance, outsourcing and offshoring only really works to a place like India so long as the differentials in wages are significant enough to make it worthwhile adding an extra layer of management cost to actually make the offshoring process work efficiently and safely. And that's expensive. So once you get to 60 or 70 or 80% wage levels of the European Union or the United States, the economics, quite frankly, don't stack up any longer. And when you have 14% at a minimum wage inflation, as I say, in middle management, you don't have to have too many years before, as I say, these things start to become very uneconomic. So watch out. We are already starting to see some jobs that were offshore to India come back to the European Union, the United States, Canada, Australia and the rest. And we're going to see significantly more of that in the future. And in the meantime, we're going to see other jobs move to places like Bangladesh and Pakistan. And a big question mark for those companies that were too slow at the beginning to get their processes offshored in time, to get those early cost advantages. And they will be sitting scratching their heads in places like London, Madrid, New York, Chicago, wondering whether it's still worthwhile doing it at all.